Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the I See Old People podcast. I'm Dr. Bruce, your host. Today is April 27th, 2024. I'd like to continue my trend that I've talked about the last couple of podcasts, and I want to talk once more about travel and some interesting things that have happened along the way. I do want to, first, right off the bat, I want to apologize for the very end of the last episode. There was some hitting on the mic. It was very disturbing. I missed it somehow, and I apologize for that. This time I'm going to be much more careful of not striking the mic when I get happy or excited or want to say something really quickly. I just want to keep this a nice even keel. So I did want to, just before I talk about that travel bit, I want to talk about a trip I took recently to Winnipeg. I went to Winnipeg to visit my son. My son lives out there. He lives in the eastern part of Manitoba, so he lives east of Winnipeg. He doesn't really live in Winnipeg. So we want to go on a hike. He wants to go on a hike. He wants to show us some waterfalls. He wants to show us a really nice hike, and we want to look for some chaga mushroom that grows naturally in Canada on birch trees, particularly on birch strands. So we get in the car, and we practically drive to Ontario to find trails and profile in the land and hills and valleys and rivers and waterfalls. So we drive a good hour and 15 minutes towards Ontario, and we go to this beautiful park called Whiteshell. Beautiful park, huge park practically on the border. It is on the border with Ontario. In fact, it may even go into Ontario. It may have a different name in Ontario. So we hike. We don't find any chaga. I shouldn't say that. We did find some chaga, but it wasn't worth harvesting. It was just too small an amount. It was still too close to the trunk. It has to kind of be sticking out a little bit. It looks like a black tarry spot on the birch tree. And then you have to take it off. And as good nature, you should leave about half of it there because it takes forever to grow. Take about half of it, bring it home, put it up into cubes, dehydrate it, and then you crush it up and use it as tea. And I've been drinking the chaga tea now for 6 months at least. It hasn't changed my tinnitus at all, except in the sense that it's given me this really calm, peaceful time of the day every day. And I think there's something really special about tea, drinking tea at a specific time every day. And I've also learned a lot about honey. I had no idea. This chaga tea is really bitter, so putting honey in it is like essential. So I found out about honey. I had no idea. I thought honey was just a commercial product. It was all the same. But now I realize that it depends on the flowers that the bees are getting the nectar from or getting the pollen from. So you can have early blossom, you can have late blossom, you can have all clover. It's amazing. So I've really learned a lot about honey that I didn't know, which was really, really interesting. Of course, I like a little teaspoon of honey in my chaga tea every day to make it more edible. So it hasn't really helped my tinnitus, but it certainly has been beneficial for me. But my chaga tea comes from China, so I would really like to find some here in Ontario and dry it and use it. Yeah, my tinnitus, one of my most listened to episodes was on tinnitus, so I'm not alone in the world with this problem. All kinds of people tuned into it and tried to see if I had any tips, but I don't know if anyone walked away with any further knowledge because I'm just learning about it myself. I did go to the specialist. I think I might have mentioned this already. He didn't really tell me anything other than I already knew. He said, people live with it. You're older. You're almost 65 years old. Just live with it. So what I've been doing, you might hear it right now in the background, is I've been listening to tonal music. Like most music today is around 435 hertz, 465 hertz. And I've been listening to music that's at 900 plus hertz, like 900 to 1,000. So it's quite high and it changes, and it's something incredibly soothing about it. Okay, so I want to get back to that story in Winnipeg. So we drive to Whiteshell, and on the way back, my son and his wife, they don't realize that they don't have enough gas. And they had assumed this one gas station at the foot of Whiteshell was going to be open, and it wasn't. So we start driving, and we've got a good hour drive to get back to his house. He was amazingly calm. I know when I'm in that situation, I'm watching the gas pedal. I can't even talk. I'm upset that I'm gonna let people down. I'm gonna run out of gas in the middle of nowhere, and so we just carry on. And it starts to get to the critical point where he says, it's going to be any second now. We're going to run out. And this is what my son does. He pulls into a farm. We go together. We knock on the door of the farmhouse, and a fellow comes out and immediately welcomes us. Winnipeg, they have friendly Manitoba right on their license plates, and they're just incredible people. So he says, "Oh my God, yeah, you're going to need gas." And he says, "Is it okay if you just get purple gas?" And then under his breath, he says, "Well, I guess purple gas is better than no gas." So I learned something that day. That farmers, it's kind of a subsidy. They get this purple gas. It's got a purple dye in it, and they can use that in their tractors and in all their farm equipment. Now, the rule is they can't use that purple gas in their personal vehicles. And certainly he told us that this purple gas should not be going into your vehicle right now. He said, "But, I'm going to help you out." And so he sold us $10 worth of purple gas. And I never saw that it was actually purple, but, that's what they called it. And I'm curious if that type of subsidy exists in Ontario. I don't know. If maybe one of my listeners could let me know, I'd really appreciate it. But this is in Manitoba, so we get $10 worth of purple gas, and we have no problem getting home. And it's just great, and we talk about how nice and friendly people are. But I got to tell you, I would have ever thought of doing something like that. I've run out of gas twice in my life. Once I was in the middle of nowhere, so it didn't really apply. But the other time I ran out of gas, I was down near Dunnville, Ontario. I literally was parked right across from somebody's house, waiting for the CAA to come with gasoline, because I'm a member, and if I have a road problem, they would come and assist me. And I just sat there and waited for them. I didn't even cross my mind to walk across the street and go ask somebody for gas. It just, I don't know, maybe that's the difference between Ontario and Manitoba right there, because my son didn't think twice about it, and the farmer, he was so happy to help us out, and his wife was so nice, and it was just a great experience. Okay, so what I want to talk about was the travel that I did in 2016. And I was putting down all my trips in my later years, because mostly, especially when I was drinking, mostly I would go to all-inclusives and drink watered-down booze and cheap beer and crappy wine, and that would be my week, and I'd come back all bloated and sick and feeling crappy, and that was kind of my routine once a year. And so, I thought, well, I'm not going to talk about that, because that was a dark time in my life, the all-inclusive time. But in 2016, we did something different. We went on a 3-week trip to Asia, and we did 2 weeks in Thailand and 1 week in Myanmar. And Myanmar is Burma, the old Burma. The 2 weeks in Thailand, one was in Koh Samui, the island resort area in the south, and then we went to Chiang Mai, which is a large city in the north. And we spent a week in each of those places. And Thailand is a fantastic place. Loved it. Loved everything about it. Really makes you wonder about wealth, because these people are very, very poor, and they are very, very happy, and they have very successful and fulfilling lives. I really think there's an inverse relationship with money, because I see all these miserable faces in Canada, with the richest country, one of the richest countries in the world. So, but what I want to talk about was the trip to Myanmar. Okay, Myanmar, which was old Burma, has been under military rule until 2015. So 2016 was the first year they were allowing visitors. So we were one of the very, very first people to ever get to explore Myanmar. So we went into Myanmar for a week, and we did a lot of touristy things. We saw an awesome puppet show. We saw elephants, and but what was really interesting to me was what happened to me health-wise. So before I left for Myanmar, before we left for that trip, I was having some toothaches. I was having toothaches in the back part of my tooth, back part of my mouth, in my molar. And I went to the dentist. I said, I'm going to be on a flight. I'm going to be gone for 3 weeks. Check my tooth. He checks the tooth. He bangs on it. He taps it. He says, there's nothing wrong with this tooth. I says, well, it hurts every now and then when I eat something. I can feel pain in it. He says, well, I don't see anything. And that was the end of that. And I left, and I assumed that the tooth was fine. Thought maybe I had some receding gums or, something like that was causing me the pain. So anyway, the dentist in Canada was wrong. Okay, there was something wrong with my tooth. It had a big crack in it that just, I guess, wasn't visible to him. But it started to become very, very painful. So we're in Myanmar, and I'm trying to enjoy myself, and I'm trying to be part of the whole experience with this group that we're with. We're with 6 other people, so there's 8 of us all together. So it gets worse and worse. It just keeps getting worse, and comes in waves where it just hits you, and it's just like you can't talk. You're just in this extreme pain, and you just wait. You just wait for it to leave, and you hope that it's not going to happen again for a while. What was happening, though, was the frequency was getting more and more close together, more and more close together. Like it would happen, it would last a long time, and then I'd have a brief period of relief, and then it would happen again, and it was getting worse. So it just happens to be that this morning, where we're going to go hot air ballooning. Okay, we're in Bagan, and Bagan is the land of 1,000 temples. There are temples everywhere. It's spectacular. Go stop the podcast now, go to Google and type in Bagan, Myanmar, and take a picture of what we would have seen in that hot air balloon. But we didn't, because the hot air balloon was canceled. We got our money back. It was too windy. But we were already up before sunrise. It was supposed to watch the sun come up over Bagan, over the 1,000 temples from the air. We were all up and dressed. I was in pain. The night before was so bad. I didn't even have dinner with everybody. I just went in my room and just basically suffered through the pain. And so it was early morning. The sun wasn't up yet. So we took the bus that was going to bring us to the hot air balloons to Bagan. We go to Bagan, and we decide to climb. You could still do that then. I think they've stopped people from climbing the temples now. You could climb the temples from the outside. There are ladders there. So we climbed one of the temples in the dark, and we got up onto the little perch, and we're going to watch the sunrise from this perch. The pain hit me to a degree that I was crying. I had tears in my eyes. I was sitting in silence. I was in such agony. It was becoming an extreme headache. It was going all through my jaw. My eyes were squinty and watery. I was in such pain, and I had already bought all kinds of remedies. I'd used clove on it. I was using painkillers. I was putting anesthesia on it. I was doing everything I could to get through this morning, and I did. The sun came up, and we went back from Bagan to back to the hotel, and we go to leave to our next leg of our trip. We're going to this other city in Myanmar. And as soon as we get back to our main area, where we're going to make this transfer, I guess that's the best way to put it. We're going to make this transfer to another bus that's going to bring us to this village. Instead, I see a taxi. Because we had flown back from Bagan, so I see a taxi there. I go up to the taxi. I say, you have to bring me back to the Iceland Hotel, which is where we were staying. And I go back to the Iceland Hotel. I ask them for the name of a dentist, and I go to a dentist. So the whole rest of my group has left, and they have gone on to see this village that they talk about very highly. They loved this experience. I've seen pictures, and it looked like it was a heck of a lot of fun. But instead, I went to a dentist. So I actually had an escort from one of the people who worked at the Iceland Hotel. He came with me. It's very interesting to go to a dentist in Myanmar. Like dentistry in Thailand is a tourist industry. So dentistry in Myanmar is a lot different. So the way she explained it to me was it was a woman dentist. She said, I was trained in Thailand. You can trust me. I was trained in Thailand. I said, okay, well, that's good news. So I go in and see this dentist. I mean, she's got like some equipment, dental equipment that's like, looks like it's out of the 60s. The light is cracked above, and the equipment is very, very old. There's a group of people sitting like it's a family sitting having lunch in the reception area. It might have been her family. It might have been just another family waiting. It was on the third floor. You had to take your shoes off in this building on the main floor. So everybody's shoes are on the bottom, and then you walk up barefoot, which is very common in Myanmar. So I get in the dentist chair, and she opens up and she looks and she says, okay. And she just starts drilling. She pokes around a little bit, and then she just starts drilling, and I start screaming. I said, oh my God. And then what she had done is two things. One, she had not given me any anesthetic because I didn't ask for it. She didn't give me any anesthetic, and she was drilling into the wrong tooth. So it was a perfectly healthy tooth, and now I have this perfectly healthy tooth with this little drill mark in it. But it didn't hurt the tooth. Maybe down the road it will. But I mean, it was fine. And then I said, no, I need an anesthetic. So she says, you gotta have to pay for it. I said, okay, I'll pay for it. So she gives me anesthetic, waits for my mouth to freeze. And then she goes in and she hits the right tooth. As soon as she drills into it, it basically explodes. The infection starts pouring out. The relief was instant. It was unbelievable how much relief I got when that thing started. The pus started coming out of it, and the infection started coming out of it. It was just amazing relief. I felt like a million times better. It was unbelievable how much better I felt when she drilled into that tooth. So she does that. She cleans it all up. She shoves some gauze or something in it, and she said, this should be good now. When you get back to Canada, you get a dentist to look at it, and he'll cap it. Okay, so I had no idea what capping it meant. I had no idea really what a crown was at that point. I learned later. But anyway, there's no capping going on. It's a whole different experience. But anyway, that was it. I mean, my pain was gone. It was absolutely gone. She gave me a couple painkillers. I never even had to take them. She gave me antibiotics. I never even had to take them. And get this, my bill for this procedure, $44 US. $44 US. I paid that gladly. I think I gave her 50, so she even got a tip. And you don't tip dentists usually, but I was just such relief. So then I got back to the Iceland Hotel, and right beside the Iceland Hotel is Lover's Pub. Okay, Lover's Pub is where we were drinking. It's where I got my taste for beer. I really became quite a beer drinker after my trip to Myanmar and Thailand, because you can't drink the water there. So drinking beer is common. All day long people drink beer, and we did it all day long for 3 weeks, and I became very, very addicted to beer after that. So that's unfortunate, but I went ahead and drank a few beer. I was very happy. I went down, saw a barber. I had my head shaved. I had a traditional Myanmar costume that I had purchased. I put it on, so I looked like a monk. It was really cool. And then by the time the group got back later in the evening, I had quite a few beer, and they saw one happy guy when they got back. I was sitting in Lover's Pub, and Lover's Pub is wide open to the street. It's all dirt streets as well, I might add, in Myanmar. We were in a city of 1 million people, Yangon with a Y. 1 million people in that city, and there's not a single traffic light. There's not a single stop sign, but somehow people get around and they do what they have to do. So that was it. I mean, after that, I had complete relief. I enjoyed the rest of the trip. I loved it. I was like a new man. Everyone was commenting that, Bruce is back. And yeah, thank God, because I was off in a corner often for the previous 4 or 5 days, with just in pain, just in agony, not being able to join the group and be part of the group. So the trip ends, and I get back to Canada, so I have to go and get this capped, is what she said to me. She said, so I go in, and I said, I want to get this capped. She says, okay, well, what we'd have to do is we have to put a crown in. I have to do a root canal. We have to put a crown in. So what that means is they have to pull the tooth that's there, the existing tooth. They have to put a post in, and then that post has to like solidify in there and kind of grow into my gum. And then on top of the post, they put a fake tooth. That's what a crown is. But I had no idea at the time because I never had any dental work like that. I always thought a crown was more like a crown. It was up on top. It was the top, and it was covered the top. So anyway, I had the tooth pulled, put in the post, put the crown on, which is a fake tooth, and I've had no problems with it, other than a little food gets stuck in it all the time. I always have to have a toothpick handy. But other than that, I mean, it's been wonderful. But let me tell you, for him to finish that job, $850, and it's probably a lot more now. So I went from the $44 emergency care in Myanmar to the $800 final repair bill, but it was fine. I didn't mind paying it. I'd give anything to not go through that pain again. That pain was just beyond. I don't know how to describe it otherwise. It made the trip memorable, not only because we saw this beautiful country that few people have ever been to, because Burma was under military rule for like 60 years. So very few people in my generation have ever been to Burma. And I was, and I'm thrilled. Of course, it's Myanmar now, but it's a beautiful country. The people are so poor. They're even poorer than the people in Thailand, and yet they're so happy. They have a great quality of life. There's lots of food. That's the one thing about Asia, Myanmar, Thailand. There's lots of food. You can grow anything. There's lots of fruit. There's lots of animals. There's lots of food. So you can eat well. You live in this beautiful, hot, tropical environment. You got lots of sun, lots of vitamin D, and it's so important. Family is so important to them. Family unit, the children, the elders. That's what makes a rich society. That's what's missing in our society right now. It's really missing. So it was a life-changing trip for me, and I just can't say anything else about it other than I loved every bit of it, except for that terrible tooth pain. But it also was part of the experience. It was part of what happened there and part of what makes me. So here I am on the verge of 4 years of sobriety, continuous sobriety. I've had many streaks of it before that, 8 months here, 6 months here. I never really made it over 8 months. I made it over 8 months. I made it to 8 months 3 times and relapsed. But now I've been almost 4 years. In June, it'll be 4 years of continuous sobriety. So my life has changed incredibly since those days. And, I don't miss that beer at all. That beer just gave me a big gut and made me lazy. So I'm happy to be done with it. All right, so we're here at a 23-minute mark, and you've been great listening to me, and I appreciate every one of you for doing that. I love you. Come back again. I think my next podcast is probably going to be on my anniversary, my 4-year anniversary, or as they like to say in AA, my 4-year birthday. And that birthday is something to celebrate. It hasn't been easy, being sober all these years. I'm surrounded by alcohol a lot of the time, and I managed to get through it, and I managed to get through it without really a lot of issues at all. I really hardly think about it anymore, especially on a day-to-day basis. I rarely think about it on a day-to-day basis, but the odd thought gets to me every now and then, and I just have to use the tools that I've learned to get over that and to move forward and to stay sober. So anyway, this has been the Icy Old People podcast. Dr. Bruce, thanks for listening, and I hope to speak to you again soon.